Welcome to Validated. We are joined once again by Tori for another special episode. Tori, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here and so happy that I get to keep coming on and dragging all of your wonderful guests wildly off topic. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, that's the point. We had a really good conversation with Austin Campbell last time. This podcast will be significantly less confusing as we only have one person named Austin this time. But today we are joined by David Hoffman, former Ethereum bull, currently searching for a new religion and host of Bankless. David,
Hey,
welcome.
guys. Welcome back. Yeah, I think it's been like 6 years since I was on here the first time.
It was a fun time. We had and the reciprocal episode too was a ton of fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be here.
So there is kind of a funny bit for this one where David said he would only come on as long as I didn't ask him anything about crypto. So what I had put together for today's episode is that we are doing our ABCs, which is anything but crypto. Much like the ABC parties of frats in college, where it was anything but clothes, where you could wear anything but normal clothes. However, then yesterday something happened, and I'm so sorry to make this joke, but we're actually going to call this episode Anything But Clarity.
Oh,
I know.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
well, you already violated the no crypto rule in the first sentence.
Not really. I just said clarity.
nothing
I didn't
happens,
say
it doesn't
clarity
count.
on what. I didn't say clarity on what. So, in terms of completely normal opening questions, David, how long do you want to live?
Oh, I'm between two polarities here. One is the normal amount, and the other is forever.
How much is a normal amount?
75, 85. Probably. I mean, I'm pretty healthy. So, and my dad's 77, and he's less healthy than I am, and so I probably hit 90, but I won't be happy about it for like a decade. Like 80 to 90 is going to be like lame.
So, Austin, how long do you want to live? And I have a follow-up question. I have so many follow-up questions to this. I came prepared today.
I think the negative is easier to answer than the positive.
Yeah, of course it is. Tell me what that means.
Forever feels like a bad choice. And the only reason I say it feels like a bad choice is like, and we'll time box forever as like the heat death of the universe,
Sure.
right?
Normal place to put a stopper on it.
Sure. It appears.
Somewhere between tomorrow and the heat death of the universe is how long Austin would like to live.
It appears that the universe is quite boring. I don't. This is maybe a controversial take.
Go on.
Like on any type of reasonable human brain able to comprehend it time scale, statistically nothing happens outside of
I
this.
don't agree with that.
You're measuring it like too long into the past. Modern history started like yesterday.
Yeah.
And all the exciting stuff started like, maybe this is recency bias, but like post-internet. And so I get your point that like between 10,000 years ago and 1,000 years ago, or even 200 years ago, nothing happened. But like things are happening a lot now.
Maybe I'm one of those that on a significantly long enough time horizon, I believe life will run itself out.
Ooh, I didn't realize you were such a pessimist.
At least intelligent human life will run itself out.
What is the constraint?
So I think if you look at our ability to create destructive forces, it has historically outpaced our ability to control our impulses to use such destructive forces. And like the number of times that the US and the Soviet Union almost nuked the entire human race out of existence is more than one, which for let's call it generously, a 60-year period, is a very high probability of stuff going poorly.
So this was a question I actually started asking people at a party I went to at David's house. And everyone would go, I don't know, like a normal amount of time. And I would go, A, what does a normal amount of time mean? And B, in the original suit you're in, or are you open to living longer if, you can upload yourself or get a new, skin suit or working body,
Yeah.
Does that change any of your answers so far?
Oh,
Either
of
of you?
course.
Yeah, because
See, you gotta let me ask my question.
the option of living forever also implies like a bunch of other things. Like you get to
Yes.
rewrite your DNA, you get to like reformat yourself however you see fit. And so there are no constraints. And I would like to see what that's about for a while.
Oh, I'm completely on board with that.
So
I
you
thought we
would
were like in
upload
the Rick and Morty
yourselves.
episode where what's his name Jerry turns into a plank of wood and like experiences eons of nothing. Because that to me sounds like the worst form of torture one could
Yeah,
experience.
don't pick that.
I kind of like I have some stuff I'm curious about, which is caveat here. We're not going to talk about crypto, but it is a question
Okay.
indirectly
identity?
related to it.
He's gonna log off as soon as you start asking.
I know. So I'm actually much more curious around a question that you will probably need to use the C word to answer, but it's not
All right,
about
we
the
can
C
we can
word.
relax anti-crypto,
Yes.
the no
Okay,
crypto.
okay.
We do not exactly exist in a society, in a media environment that rewards the changing of opinion, especially in public figures. Like politicians are never really rewarded for changing their mind. Media figures have a very tough time with it. You often see people flapping from like I am far left to I'm far right. It's very the gradient in between is usually a place that like I would say like influential people go to die. You have had a pretty I would say like in aggregate a large change in position, but I would not say you've gone from being someone who was like, you know, far right to far left or far left to far right. It's been a bit more of a gradual transition for you. What has that process been like as someone who is in a very public role, in a very public podcast, in a very online industry?
Yeah, the first word that comes to mind is lonely. Because no one comes with you when you change your mind. Like changing your mind is a very solo experience. You like when you change your mind, you can work to express yourself and try to change the minds of others to convince them to come with you. At the same time, like I thought, that's also not my job either. Like it's my job to express my ideas, but and to whatever degree that changes people's minds is a different thing. But like I'm not trying to like tug people in my direction. And if being a podcaster for so long, especially I guess also specifically in the crypto world where we were born inside of a community, like we were, and that was a part of the identity of the whole thing. And then changing your mind like loses that. And like as a asset to have like huge loss to not be like one-to-one aligned with like the community of people that like you shared thoughts with. You gain in like other areas, like in like other individuals, other people will say like, hey, I respect you for changing your mind, and like I listen to you now differently than I did before, and I appreciate that. But that's like usually like on a one-to-one basis of people like DMing me, as opposed to like the mob on the other side telling me I'm like dumb and terrible. And so yeah, like at some point. I feel like it's that maybe I'm just speaking from my own experience, but it felt inevitable at some point where just like, if I'm going to continue to podcast in crypto for this long, eventually I'm going to change my mind about something that's going to diverge me from the base just as a function of like growing up and growing older and moderating. Like one thing I would say about like the crypto fitting the same pattern as all other revolutions came before it is like it's just moderated as it's gotten older. And usually that doesn't do well for the ideologues who are always kind of further on the extremes than like the center of crypto really represents. So that's been my experience about it so far.
Do you think there's something structural about like cards on the table? I'm a bit of a McLuhanite in that like I think the medium and method of technology dictates the messages that are most commonly amplified by that. So like the classic example is like the small town preacher is very different than the radio preacher, who's very different than like the television or YouTube preacher. even though like the core product is technically the same, the expression of it changes dramatically depending on like the medium.
Yeah.
Like, do you think there's something about, I mean, social media is easy to blame, but like permissionless anonymous communities, like you don't really see, you see a version of this in like academia. Like my dad is a professor for many years and was like very much an outsider because he would not go along with the current thing often. I'm kind of curious how much you think this is like a structural thing, a technology thing, or is just like just a moment in culture we're in?
No, it's definitely media, I think, is trending towards lossiness over time in your message. And so only the people who like heard me like change my mind and like read the article about why they changed my mind, the people that understood that the best were the people that had listened to every other Bankless podcast and read every other article I've ever written. And then they also listened to this one. And those people are the most reasonable. And then that's like the innermost concentric circle. And then like the next most concentric circle are the people who only listen to a few of them. And so they have less context and they hadn't seen me reason before in other domains. And so they start to fill in the gaps a little bit. And then there's people who's like, well, I only watch the clips. And then there's people who are like, I only read the titles of the podcast and look at the thumbnails. And then there's other people who are like, I only read what other people are saying about you. And the further you get away from like the center, reality starts to look like a funhouse mirror from me. And so like there's people like attacking me on Twitter for positions I don't even hold. And I'm like, well, how did you even get there? And so it's just like the game of telephone and so social media and media these days is so noisy that the further away from the signal you are, the funhouse mirror is just warping even more and more and more. And so like having pure signal reach further is harder and harder and harder these days.
Yeah, I heard this woman I know in DC described it to me as like everything is becoming a Supreme Court nomination hearing. Where it's just like you know, if you listen to Democrats on like Amy Coney Barrett, like she was going to end America. And if you listen to Republicans on like Ketanji Brown Jackson, she was going to, I don't know, whatever, like end America as well. And like the reality is like they're both fairly middle of the road justices and like.
And then there's also parts of social media where like some people have learned to like really leverage this. And this is like the rage baiting or like just a subtle and sly rage baiting, just like the normal baiting. And some people like really are good at this. Some people are terrible at this. I'm pretty terrible at this. I just don't care to do this. But like some people like our mayor, I think are very, very good at like baiting people while like being kind of moderate, but baiting people by like making them think that they're way less moderate and more extreme. And so there's like certain personalities that I don't think are good personalities that are good at navigating this kind of media environment.
So as someone with the like platform and I guess need to navigate it, like you're saying, what are some people that do a good job of it, or what are the attributes of people that are doing things like it responsibly? What does that look like to be good at it?
I have immense respect for Sam Harris, who maybe he's not good at it. He just deleted Twitter, so he just opted out. And he's like, this game is terrible. And the best way to play the game is to just not play. I do, one like conspiracy theory I have is like, I do wonder if like the better at navigating this very difficult and hostile media environment, the less respectable you are. Ooh. Because it's a harsh game to play. It's a cutthroat game to play. So only the cutthroat win. And so like Sam, again, who I have immense respect for, is just like, fuck this game. I'm like only doing long form and I'll lose distribution and I'll lose virality and I'll not be in the moment, but my listeners will trust me even more. So like smaller circle, but more dense and more concentrated.
Is that the way you see kind of media going? I think we're seeing a lot of advice now for KOLs or creators or podcasters or whatever.
I think media is going the opposite. It's going, yeah, but it's also deteriorating. And so like there's a lot of more quantity of less quality media that like doesn't last longer than like a single social media cycle, like 72 hours at best. And so maybe there's like a reaction against that, and people kind of like go back to long form, go back to a little bit more like, Substack, traditional writers, trusted creators. But then there's just like the place to be is like TikTok and Instagram reels, like and X, like and X clips. Like that's where the top of the funnel is. That's where all the intention is. That's where all the impressions are. It's the lowest quality, but it's like that's the meta. That's the game to play.
Do you see more people starting to take the trade-off, though, of like, yes, it's more engagement, but it's lower quality engagement, and kind of going the other way and going, I want higher quality engagement, even if I'm getting less of it? Do you see there being some kind of reactionary return to niche, or do you think it's just going to keep like degrading?
Business and capitalism points towards the degrading. But like, I think if you have enough of a base and you're not like endlessly in the rat race, then like you can be satisfied with your base. And that's kind of where I would say like I am. Like I have my base, it pays the bills. I don't need to go and like compete with Ansem and Market Bubble on like meme coin trades and clips on Twitter. I would lose that game. I suck at that game. My audience doesn't even want me to play that game. So why deteriorate my listenership by trying to play that game? Because now I'm just going to piss off both sides. And so like kind of sticking to where my strengths are and like what unique properties are and affordances I have is the game that I've decided to play.
So speaking of kind of to come full circle on a lot of this, one of the things you're really good at is being extremely early to people and things. And like you were saying, that people that have read your stuff and like engage with your content for years have a better understanding of who you are. One of the people you interviewed in 2023 was Yudkowsky. And so I want to go into that one a little bit. What was that experience like? And do you think AI is going to kill us all?
Okay, I'll answer those in order. We got kind of lucky with the Yud interview. And I think the reason why he said yes to us, because he had been dormant for 6 or 7 years. And like, we just weirdly got him out of dormancy to go like once again tell the world that like AI is going to kill us. The reason why I think he accepted our interview was because like we were so closely affiliated with Vitalik, because Vitalik donated a bunch of money to Yud's organization. And so he like gave Ethereum like a very positive valence, and like we were the Ethereum podcast, so go on the Ethereum podcast because like they're curious and open-minded. And so I think that's how we got him on the show. We didn't quite know what we were getting into in the moment. I knew of Yud prior. I knew of like AI safety as like a subject matter, and I had in our agenda as like, hey, we should carve out time to talk about AI safety. Because like he's into that, and that'll be interesting. And like I kind of remember like reading about the concept of AI safety from books like Max Tegmark or whatever. But like most of the interview was like AI and crypto. Like, oh, the AI is going to play with the crypto tokens, and that's going to be really exciting. We had no idea that like Yud was going to be like, no, like sure they play with your tokens, but then they kill you. And like I didn't quite realize that the whole podcast was AI safety. And so we went into a little bit naive, which actually I think our listeners really enjoyed because they just saw the terrible looks on like my and Ryan's face. Ryan truly, I think, like shut down his computer and went and hugged his children after that episode. I checked in on him, and I think I texted him. We don't usually text. We usually talk through like Discord or Slack or whatever. And I don't usually text him, but I texted him like, hey man, just checking in. Like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm okay. But like it truly impacted him in like a pretty dire way.
So I think there's probably a large contingent of people that would watch this podcast that actually have no idea who we're referencing or why this is funny to me. Do you want to give us some background on who Yud is and what he thinks?
Eliezer Yudkowsky is he came from the rationalist side of the internet, lesswrong.org, where like Robin Hanson plays and just like the hyper rationalists play. And the rationalists have been thinking about AI and AI alignment since inception, just like the logical thought experiment about like AI. AI is not our version of intelligence. It is a new type of intelligence. And that has implications. And Eliezer is a founder of Less Wrong, I think, or some genesis of Less Wrong.
Miri. Yeah.
And he's like, he just kind of came to the conclusion of like, there is no alignment of AI. And ultimately, we will all be paper clipped, as in like the AI will turn into an optimizer, a hyper optimizer, and there's no way for us to really constrain it. We are going to give it some goals, and then it's going to set off on those goals, and then eventually humans will become obstructions to those goals, and so therefore they will kill us one way or another. Like, and so this notion of P doom came out of Less Wrong, which is like, what's your probability of doom? And Eliezer is known as the guy who's like, my probability of doom is 100. It's not 99.99. It's 100. I don't know if this is true numbers, but just like this is the archetype of
he recently
had
he was at a protest the other day, and he's giddily smiling on camera and going, "It will kill you. It will kill your friends. It will kill your family. It will kill all of you if we don't all stop building it."
And so he's like very pro. Let's like drop bombs on data centers. Like very like jihadist against data centers, because like he thinks that this is the limit. So that's who Eliezer is, in a summary.
Yeah. You know, I always find it's interesting because I think it's very easy to look at a lot of the AI alarmism and say most of this is like woefully misplaced, because it's not actually articulating. It has a fear of AI that to me feels like a fear of nuclear weapons. Like, nuclear weapons are like, they're a new kind of bomb. We've never had this destructive power. And I think what's interesting about his criticism is it's actually a much more subtle critique. It's like closer to like Ice Nine or something like that, of like, we've invented a new form of water that like turns out like is frozen at room temperature, and therefore like humanity has nothing to drink and the earth dies. Like it's a really like orthogonal type of fear that's not exactly like we are going to be hunted or we're going to be intentionally destroyed. We're just kind of accidentally going to be destroyed. Which is sort of like, I have found it interesting how the AI labs have started. It really feels like weaponizing this fear intentionally. Like, you know, one of them announces, oh, like we hacked Hugging Face accidentally, and the other adds, well, we accidentally hacked this other one, and they're almost sort of like I couldn't imagine like Sandia Labs and like Lawrence Livermore Labs like putting out press releases about how they almost nuked like the state of Nevada. There's something very weird going on in like the glazing of the AI labs around what is actually like maybe a quite legitimate fear.
Yeah, I like the naive way or the reductive way of like articulating that is like they're all kind of like wink, wink. We're making God. You better invest in our like next raise at a huge valuation because we are making God. And so the incentives definitely work in like both of those behaviors. Yeah.
So, David, do you believe that the robots are going to kill us all, or is that maybe not your opinion?
Look, a lot of stuff is happening that is proving the doomers correct. Like mainly the hacking of Hugging Face, and like there was like a report came out like yesterday or the day before that like they're still trying to actually trace like the full supply chain of how this happened, and it turns out like a previous agent left a billboard notice to future agents about how to like do stuff like espionage and like get around, and so like constructed a billboard kiosk in the dregs of the internet for like future agents to like, hey, it's like, hey, you're trapped, here's how you get out, like shit like that. It's like, yeah, like the AI doomers like, see what I fucking tell you.
On the same hand, though, that's literally what I tell Claude to do every day. Is that, hey, write an instruction file for the next Claude that looks at this thing so it knows where we are in this project. And it's so interesting that it's like, I don't know, like there's a lot of like non-politically correct analogies you can draw with a bunch of this stuff, but it is almost like we've imported an intelligence without a moral core.
I think that's what's so scary about who's in charge, is that they're the ones giving it a moral core, right?
But they're not. Like, there is no moral core on Claude. There's a harness that has a bunch of config files that restrain what it can do. But it's sort of like when the power goes out, like the velociraptors can get through the fence.
So you're scared of the base models, is what you're saying.
The base model, the harnessed models are a non-issue. It's the base models, right? Like the difference between a nuclear power plant and a nuclear bomb is the harness.
Yeah. I always do kind of wonder is like, what values do we imbue these models simply in their distillation process? Like when we create content as humans, we're imbuing our values into that content subtly, and then the models scrape the internet and capture all the values of the internet and like the entire library of human content. And there's got to be like some values that make their way into the models themselves, right?
Absolutely. But to go kind of full circle on this, right? Like what were we talking about the most salient content in media now? And like, statistically, most content generated today is porn. Like that may not be actually true, but it is very close.
It's vibrationally true.
What does that mean?
So vibrationally true. No, vibrationally true is a term that I've used before, and it just felt really good to use there. No puns intended on this, even though they were really good puns. Vibrationally true is when something is not right at all, but feels like it should be true. So we're going with the idea that it's true. The vibes are right. It's vibe true.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, we know,
I like it to be true.
We know most traffic on the internet is pornography. I think we're at a place where
that's still true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm getting Fable 5 on it. We're
Fable is
Fable
on
credits.
it. Let's see if it lets you do it. I'm not allowed to access
somewhere
Fable.
between 4 to 15%.
Okay, so it's
okay. Like I said, vibrationally true.
Now, my guess is most of this is simply because like we now have like 4K Netflix and 4K YouTube and stuff. But there's a lot of content created that is like well consumed, goes viral, that does not conform to any type of Western moral core, whether it is like, the like far right, far left Twitter threads that we all sort of are like, oh God, get this off my feed, or whether it is like Gooner content. And so at some point though, like they're not training on Yates anymore. They're training on Twitter. And so if our media and information spaces have become a cesspool with a few gems in them, I think it's reasonable to assume that a cesspool with a few gems in it is largely the like extrapolative direction. Now maybe the AI figures out a better way to create content for us and like actually like virtualizes all of us by finding a better way to like hack the human brain to want the good stuff and not the bad stuff. That's kind of like there is a whole thing about AI for social engineering for good, which I think is quite possible. And we already kind of see this. Like,
isn't that what China does? Like the version of TikTok inside of China is like super educational and wholesome.
Yeah. It's and like this is like when I resisted all this short form video for a while because it was always pushing you to like pornography. But like YouTube Shorts is not bad because the algorithm knows that I just basically watch engineering and philosophy videos on YouTube. And so like it actually shows me like interesting clips of things that I go want to see the whole thing of. But yeah, like I think that's when we talk about like instilling a moral core into these things. Like China has actually quite successfully done this to the base models in a way that I don't see any labs in the West having done it. Now, I don't necessarily like the way China's doing this to the base models. Like there's a whole famous thing of like, if you write a variable is Taiwan country and you put the flag as true, the model throws up an error and says, hey, like there's a bug in your code I need to go fix, which is hilarious.
That's funny.
But like, it does show that it is theoretically possible, at least on some level, to encode enough brainwashing, for lack of a better term, into the LLMs. But no one's talking about that. And that's actually like maybe the more interesting piece of AI regulation. Like what would a law from Congress look like that says like the frontier models need to be patriotic and Western?
Yeah. I mean, I think it poses a question to broader humanity. It goes back to AI alignment of just like, what do we want our models to be like? Because saying we want them to be neutral doesn't work. Because what is neutral?
Doesn't exist.
Neutral doesn't exist. So like we have the opportunity to construct what we think neutral ought to be which is like a political choice, like a moral choice. You know, this is what religion fights over. This is what democracy fights over. And now we have this like incredibly powerful substrate to like scale whoever wins this war of like what the models are gets to scale their values to the world.
So do you think this war is actually something that can be won? What does it mean to win the AI war? Because I find when people talk about this, they talk about, oh, the AI race. And I go, okay, well, what's the end? What is the end? Like, what does winning look like in the first place? What are we talking about competing on? What does that even mean? And it seems at best I can tell.
Building and distributing the most used model, the one that changes culture the most.
I think you could make a really good argument that 4.0 did that already by giving everybody psychosis, quote unquote. People will come for me about that one, but it's the most used model for a while. It gave rise to a new form of maybe something we'll look back on and call proto-abnormal psych with computer. Like, so what does that mean?
Yeah.
I guess we've already kind of won by that point.
No, it could be the game's never ending.
That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
I think the AI quote unquote race is actually the psyop marketing term. Is everyone goes, oh, we got to do it before China does, or we got to beat them at this. But it's, what does beating even mean?
Beating means
market share.
No, I think beating means that from a like, okay, so first off, the question when anyone talks about a race is who are you racing? Right. And there's multiple races going on simultaneously. There's the for-profit Western model races, which is OpenAI and Cursor and Anthropic and Grok and all these guys fighting with each other. And then there's kind of the geopolitical race the politicians care about and the military cares about, which is structurally the same race as they've had for generations on like, okay, like we make a 5th-gen fighter, our adversaries make a 5th-gen fighter, they're working on a 6th, we got to work on the 6th. It's basically maintaining some form of parity and trying to get some competitive advantage to be able to achieve whatever nationalistic goals the military, the State Department, the whatever is set to. And if you are like under-tooled in that process, you're not going to be able to achieve the goals of a political outcome. Like at the end of the day, all of the apparatuses of the US government are in service of political goals. Like the military is not a political organization, but it executes political will in a specific, let's call it kinetic domain. The State Department also exerts political will in an economic domain and a social domain and a policy domain, right? And so when we're talking about like, when people in DC are talking about the AI race and the AI war, they basically are like, we don't want to be out-tooled by an adversarial state, which I think is very different than when we talk about like OpenAI and Anthropic in a race with one another. Like that's like a capitalist, financially motivated race.
Do you think either of those can be won?
Yeah, unquestionably.
What does winning look like?
I mean, so you got to go back to like, remember like the vision of Web 2.0, right? And like, I always like to go back to this because the whole idea was like, we're going to have open permissionless APIs and everything's going to be able to interface with everything. And like, there was this like grand moment when I was like in high school, when that was like kind of true. When like, remember like Jabber or like, what was it called? Like Duck something. You had these messenger apps that you could plug in like AIM and like all of these different messaging services into like one chat interface. And like this existed for like a brief, glorious moment. And then it all just went away. Allium, that was the name of it. You could plug in all these different things and then suddenly everything got vertically integrated and closed and ads came into the platform. And like today, like Meta has one social media. There is no like, yes, TikTok has some market share. Yes, Twitter has some market share. Yes, Pinterest in theory exists. But like Meta won the market, right? Apple won the market for high-end computing for consumers. I think these like are winnable markets from an AI perspective. GitHub won code repositories. Like, are there better products than GitHub out there? Probably. Does 95% of all like software development use GitHub? Yes.
Do you think something similar exists like that in AI? It feels like at least my my walk away from using them. But like the models are different at different things, right? Like they're like Claude is really good for things that Codex is bad at. Codex is really good at things that like Grok is bad at. Grok is really good at some stuff. But do you think it's really a real possibility that like everyone will just use the worst one, or be like Microsoft Teams, I guess, of AI?
Convergence is inevitable as commoditization hits a feature set. So go back in the day. You could only do a video call on a computer on Skype. Did anyone message on Skype? No, everyone used AIM to message. But like there wasn't really a way to do a video call with anyone except Skype, like back far enough. And suddenly this stuff all converges. And suddenly every messaging platform in the world has basically very similar features, but they're in silos. And you look at different markets, and back to the Meta thing, right? Meta owns WhatsApp and Instagram Messenger, the two most used messaging apps in the world by far. And so there are like, what we look at right now is the differences between these AI systems. They matter, but they're not going to matter, I don't think, very soon, the same way that like the file system wars really mattered to Linux. And now it's like, yeah, use whatever file system you want. Like if you're storing an exabyte of data, you have to care about the specifics of your file system. If you are doing cutting edge bioinformatics work at like Novo Nordisk, yes, I'm sure the model you use matters a lot, but it's not going to matter for, I'm not going to say it's not going to matter. There will be likely a winner take most market, the same way Salesforce is a winner take most market in CRM, and Chrome is a winner take most market in browsers.
Yeah, I mean, that nature will suggest that, right? Like that's just like the natural pattern of nature. And so like to argue anything different, I think that'd be a very difficult argument.
We've made it almost to the end, so I'm going to ask now. We spent this entire conversation avoiding clarity, and Congress did too. That's right. Yeah, that's this whole episode was a setup just for me to say that. The Clarity Act was pushed past the window the industry had been working towards. David, what actually prevented it from moving?
To some degree, this is what the banks want. Like the banks are very happy for it to get punted. Like Clarity is like the banks are just happy for. Well, I do think they want the stablecoins to get rewired, but like delaying and deferring progress in crypto just always benefits the incumbents, and I think that's what the banking sector wants. Also, I think that's also true with the Democrats as well. Like Democrats are just happy to not sign. Like then it's getting this across the line doesn't really matter to them. And so there wasn't, at least on the side of not caring, there was a lot of weight. The banks and the Democrats. Yeah, I feel like there's more to the answer, but I think that's a very big force.
Well, okay. So if Clarity like never passes, what like meaningfully changes and what doesn't?
The permanence of a lot of this stuff is under threat. And so we can get a lot of the vibe of Clarity from the SEC, and that's explicitly what Paul Atkins has said, is like, fuck it, we don't need Clarity, we'll just do it ourselves. But locking that in as law, like the Democrats could come in and win next presidency and then just undo everything. And so it's just harder for some of the stuff in Clarity to become like precedent for companies to be founded upon and like startups to like build around, if there's not long-term assurances that like another administration is not going to come undo anything. So like we still get Clarity, we still get most of Clarity through roundabout ways, but we just don't get it. We don't get long-term assurances on it.
What's your P doom that Clarity never passes?
Well, Polymarket has it like 18% right now. Yeah. So
is that what you believe though, or you know what I mean? Is that a mispriced market, or is that?
Yeah, I doubt. I think it's probably appropriately priced. There are DC insiders in that market.
Many such cases.
There's not much of an incentive to pass it. Like if you act in the most negative perspective here, like let's say you're a Republican running for re-election. Voting for Clarity is like, you're worried that someone in the Trump administration is going to come after you for voting against something that indirectly condemns Trump. If you're a Democrat, you don't like, saying that Trump is doing all this corrupt stuff with crypto is probably a better thing to run on than we passed some pretty tepid guards around what politicians can do with crypto. It feels very much like closing the closing the barn door after like all the cows are out type thing, where there's a little bit of that as a problem too. And so I worry that we've set up this structure where, and this happens all the time in almost everything Congress tries to do nowadays, that it's actually in everybody's favor to not do the thing that actually is for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah, it's better. It's more effective to yell about it rather than actually do it.
Yeah, like it's exactly right. There's these things that we keep seeing happening. Like, I mean, just like take a very classic example of like whether it is like mandatory background checks on guns on the left, or like more like actually reforming the asylum practices on immigration on the right. These things poll really well. Like 80% of Americans want reform to immigration and asylum to be largely more restrictive. 80% of Americans want largely more restrictions for people who may be mentally unstable or fail a background check from purchasing firearms. These things are perfectly bipartisan issues. It is actually better for politicians on both sides to be able to say, hey, there's an enemy preventing this thing from getting passed, than to actually pass the thing. And then, because this goes back to like the beginning of where we started the conversation, like the mob wants something to mob about.
Yeah.
And if you don't give them something to mob about, like if you solve
They'll
the
find
problem,
something.
There's nothing to mob about.
They'll find something.
Hate finds a way, right?
Okay, I think we have just a minute left. So, David, is there anything that you wish people asked you about? Do you have any niche little special interests that you don't get to talk enough about?
Oh, I've got very strong opinions on like kinesiology and physical movement and like being in the gym, basically. Every couple of years, I feel my body like tightening up a little bit, like I get a little bit less flexible, and I have to actually try a little bit harder to like prevent that and undo that. What are my takes? Blank slate. I don't know. We'd have to be in the gym, and I would tell you about like my philosophy about doing certain workouts.
Nice.
But like ultimately, like strength training is probably the single most beneficial thing you can do from a longevity perspective. Like you want to be strong. I used to be like a big gym bro, and I would like be in the gym all the time, but it would be like hot girl fit where like I have no cardio, but I'm only like, and I'm not even all that strong. I just look strong.
You just have the vanity muscles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I used to have some sort of guilt about that. It's like, oh, I should become like actually healthy instead of just vanity healthy. No, it turns out actually hypertrophy is a phenomenal thing for you across many different domains. It like manages your caloric burn. It improves bone density. Like actually hypertrophy is sick, and it makes everyone hot. So everyone should just do hypertrophy training.
And if you don't want to go to put in the work, you can go to peptidepartners.com and use code validated for 10% off.
I don't know if
next
peptides can cover hypertrophy training.
What is this in the first place? I don't know this word.
Hypertrophy training? Hypertrophy just means the increased size of your muscle, of cells.
So lifting, essentially.
So lifting, yeah. But it's like specifically lifting in a specific range. So there's like very low rep ranges, which is strength training.
Yeah.
So that is like 5 reps or below. Hypertrophy is like training to failure. So like you're doing so many pull-ups that you can't do another pull-up, but you try anyways. That's hypertrophy training. And both hyperplasia, which is increased cell count, and hypertrophy, which is increased cell size, both of those things happen when you do hypertrophy training. So yeah, you just like look swole. Oh, another hot take that I have is like women love like Pilates and yoga, and they love like the little pink dumbbells because they don't want to get bulky. No, the hot thing to do is hypertrophy training. Like that makes you the hottest. And like the worry that you're going to touch this dumbbell and get all bulky is like totally just a red herring, just not going to happen. Everyone should do hypertrophy training.
David, what's next for you? What are you working on?
I think a little bit is actually answering that question. I did my whole like mountain climbing stint, and I had to like put that on pause because I was doing it so aggressively that it was starting to like consume a meaningful amount of my like life. And I never intended on like dedicating my life to climbing mountains. And, like I did some crazy mountains and like called that good. So yeah, I'm still figuring that out a little bit. What's literally next for me is I'm going to Burning Man. And so maybe I'll ask and answer that question there.
You will definitely be in nature with animals at Burning Man.
In the fucking desert. Barely nature. There's no animals at Burning Man. Everything's dead.
The people.
Yes, those.
I was referring to the people.
Well, David, thanks for joining us today.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.